Hi, I'm Jade Hernandez, a camouflage tattoo artist and educator. I help beauty bosses effectively market their business and become the authority in their field, close more leads, and make more money. In the past 6 years, I've launched 2 successful beauty businesses to multiple 6 figures with over 100 5-star raving reviews and several media press spotlights. While most marketers will tell you to hustle and work harder for success, I'll show you how to create more value from the inside out so that you work less, make more, and truly expand and transform your business and life. This is the Beauty Expanded podcast. Hey guys, welcome back. This week we had a listener submit a question. She had sent me a message, and I think a lot of you guys are going to be able to relate to this, especially new artists. So this listener had said, "Hi Jade, I've been following you for a while and wanted to ask you how you went full-time in the PMU industry. I'm currently doing brows on the weekends and nights because I have a full-time job, but really want to venture off on my own. I guess I'm a little scared to take the leap because I'm still new and don't have a ton of clients. Any feedback would be great." What I love about this question is that I know for a fact, being an educator in this field, that a lot of students actually are venturing into the permanent makeup industry as a part-time gig with the intention of doing this full-time. There's only 2 ways to answer this question because you really only have 2 options. And I'm going to share with you my own personal experience. So going back to this question, I have never done PMU part-time. I always did it full-time, jumping in with 2 feet. And the reason why is because I'm the type of person where I know that if I give myself too much wiggle room, if I have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, I'm not going to be successful. That doesn't motivate and fuel me as much as jumping in with 2 feet. The reason for that is because I'm actually afraid of commitment. So I have a fear of commitment, and I know that if I have the allowance of being able to back in and back out, that's only going to amplify my fear of commitment in a detrimental way versus being able to just dive in with 2 feet. That's going to motivate and push me to make it work. So anytime I start a business, for example, when I started my airbrush tanning business, I signed a lease to that studio for a year without having a client. I had 0 clients, not 1 damn client. I remember signing that piece of paper and being so scared and being like, holy shit, like this is real. I can't back out. I am fully committed to this lease for a year, regardless if I have clients, regardless if I made enough, I'm committed. This is still going to be due. And so that actually worked in my favor because anytime I came up against fear or insecurity or doubt, like I literally would knock on doors and drop off flyers. I would ask to speak to the manager of companies. I would ask for partnerships. I would send direct messages. All of that, of course, pushed me outside my comfort box because I was always afraid, gosh, what if they reject me? Or what if I'm bothering them? Or this is so uncomfortable. I had the typical fears and doubts and insecurities, but because I knew that rent was going to be due the first of every month, it helped override those fears and insecurities for me. Anytime I had something spring up, I was like, you got to get over that, and you got to get over it real quick because you owe money at the end of this month. So knowing that that worked in my favor, that failure was not an option because rent was still going to be due, I used that to catapult my career in camouflage tattooing as well. When I started camouflage tattooing, I jumped with 2 feet in. I signed a lease. It was still scary, but not as scary as the first time I signed a lease with airbrush tanning because I had already done it. So every time I start a business, I have the same fears as everyone else, except it's more familiar to me. And because it's more familiar to me, it doesn't paralyze me. I have started so many businesses since I was 18 years old. And again, not all of them have been a great success. And so that's why failure to me doesn't paralyze and hold me back as maybe someone who's experiencing this for the first time. I can empathize on a lot of people's fears when they jump into a new business and they are working from that security, from that consistent paycheck. And now they're about to leap into something that doesn't guarantee anything. I definitely understand that fear. When I started camouflage tattooing, same thing. I signed a lease and I was like, okay, here we are. We've done this before. Failure's not an option. So what do you need to do today to fill up your books? And of course, in the beginning, things are a little bit slower. But like I've said in previous podcasts, when things are a little bit slow because you're starting out, there is so much for you to do to make use and be most productive of that time. While things are slow, that's a great opportunity for you to create content, for you to do search engine optimization, for you to build up your Google My Business profile, for you to make sure you have a Yelp profile, a Pinterest, a Facebook business page, for you to work on your logo, for you to create your consent forms. All these things you can do on the back end so that as you begin to bring in the volume of clients, you already have so much content out there that's just going to be able to help market and put your brand out there and to grow your business without you having to do anything while you're asleep. And people are searching online late at night for stretch mark camouflage or brows or whatever it is that you do. Hopefully you have so much content out there from the very beginning of your career days when things are slow to really help bring them and direct that traffic to your site or to your contact page. That's how I work, and I know that I work best because of my fear of commitment when I dive right in and I don't leave myself any wiggle room to back out. Now, not everyone is like me. If you're the type of person that needs a little bit more security, which, by the way, security is an illusion. Kobe Bryant was one of the best, if not all-time most talented basketball players on the planet. And he had billions of dollars and had all the quote and unquote security in the world. And yet within an instant, his life was taken from him. And so security is an illusion. You can look at the pandemic for an example. No one ever expected us to live or go through or have to pivot our businesses based on a pandemic. Security is not guaranteed. It is absolutely an illusion. And what I find is that people who often try to start their PMU business on the side because they want the security of their full-time job and they're waiting until that turns over, that their PMU business is able to pay them the same amount, if not more, to the point where they can quit their full-time job. It can be done, but what I've noticed is that you waste a lot of time to get to that point, if you do. And the reason why is because you have too much wiggle room. What I've noticed with the students that I've trained, the ones who have actually made this into a full-time successful career have all dived in with 2 feet. They didn't give themselves any wiggle room. And I think that's harder for someone who does work a full-time job and you make great money. And this is something that eventually you want to do. You want to venture off on your own, be your own business leader and owner. That's going to be a little bit harder of a challenge for you to step away from. And I get it. But if you are waiting for that fantasy of security, then what naturally happens is that you waste a lot of time. And when I say time, I'm saying years before you are able to flip that over. And what happens during a year and a half is a lot of buildup of self-doubt, insecurity, and fear. Because as you're juggling 2 things, your attention can only go so far. You either begin to hate your full-time job and you start fantasizing about, gosh, I wish I could go full-time with my other career, but, and there's always a but, right? But this pays more, or it's not really the right time. I have a family, all these things, right? So what ends up doing is that's all fear. So what you're spending your attention on is the fear of, can I do this? Can I make this work? Can I get enough clients? Gosh, this month is slow. So I'm so happy that I have my full-time career, but will I ever be able to quit this and really make my PMU business a career for me? I feel like what that does is it ends up breeding a lot more fear and insecurity, which ends up slowing the time that you can actually be successful. I have a friend, she does brow laminations and permanent makeup and brows and all the good things. And I watched her build her business part-time while she was working a full-time job. She hustled hard and it was hard on her. You're only allotted so much time in the day, and she had a family, she was a mom and a wife, and it was hard on her. Even to the point where she finally was able to give her job her 2 weeks notice. even at that very moment, she was still scared. She was still scared to finally make the punch. And when she did, I remember asking her, now looking back, do you ever wonder why you hadn't done it sooner? And she was like, absolutely. When I look back at all the months, how much time she had wasted stressing out and juggling 2 different schedules and even stressing out about building up the confidence to quit, I would say minimum 8 months, if not a year and a half that she wasted. And having my own experiences with entrepreneurship, I knew she was going to be successful. I knew she could have quit a year and a half before she did. And that's a lot of time that we waste. And time is not something that we can get back. It's so valuable. But that's the route that she took. And this isn't to shame anyone that takes the longer road. I think it's all about being aware that these are the roadblocks that you're going to be faced with, which is it's going to take longer for you to build the confidence within yourself to know that you can do this, because your extension of time only breeds more insecurity and fear. The other thing is that we are only given a certain amount of energy a day that we can exert, and juggling 2 jobs and all the emotions tied up between that exerts a lot of energy. I also think about your passion. If your current job begins to drain you and you're still in indecision of when the right time would be for you to finally quit that job and pursue your career, that also can start draining your passion for permanent makeup, because again, you are being pulled in so many directions. And when you start waning on your passion for leaving your full-time job to go full-time in permanent makeup, it's going to take you longer to finally take that leap. Security is an illusion, and the question you need to be asking yourself is, what type of person are you? Because whatever is going to help stretch your comfort zone is where I feel like you need to go. Anytime we set a goal or intention, we want to be able to stretch ourselves to be able to grow and to meet that goal. And I think if you give yourself, just human nature, if you give yourself too much allowance, it usually will stunt your growth. Just think about back in school. If you knew a paper was due in a month versus in a week, that's a different energy of motivation and strength that you're going to drum up versus something that you are going to naturally procrastinate and kind of put on the back burner. That's the one thing about entrepreneurship that a lot of people don't understand. When you think about being your own boss, it's really attractive to think that you have all this freedom, infinite possibility, no cap, no glass ceiling. You can make your own schedule, work when you want. It's all very, very attractive. But when you look behind the curtain, you realize that even though all of those things are true, in order to have that takes a lot of grit, takes a lot of resiliency, trust in yourself, passion, due diligence, discipline. It takes a lot of work behind the scenes to make that happen. And I think as long as you're exerting energy, working at a full-time job, you're just going to be limited on what you can truly exert and move forward for your PMU business. There is no right or wrong answer for this. You have to figure out what's going to be in your best interest. And oftentimes we choose things that are more comfortable for us, but that aren't necessarily where we're going to grow the most. And that growth, that gap, right, between where you are right now to where you can be, in between that is the growth piece. And that's the piece that's going to help fuel you and push you forward as quickly as possible. This is what I personally recommend to all of my students. If they have it in them, that's what I would recommend. But I also can respect and understand that can be a lot to be called on to someone, especially if this is their first time ever stepping into the world of entrepreneurship. If that's the case, be aware of that and set a goal for yourself. Set a timeline of, okay, by the end of this year or in the next 6 months, I'm going to get to the point where I do this, or I'm going to get to a point where I sign my own lease and get my own space. So that way you have these milestones that you're being accountable for and that you're responsible for to make sure that you really are pushing and stretching yourself more to your end goal, which was I stepped into the permanent makeup industry because I want to help others. So I feel compelled to contribute to others. And I also want to work for myself. So while you're juggling both and you're exerting all this energy and it's difficult and challenging, you have that end goal in mind to be very, very clear on what that looks like. And then I would be truly accountable for that and to stick to it. I hope that helps you. I'm excited for you. Going back to your question, where you're at, obviously you've taken the route of doing this part-time while working your full-time job, but can you commit to milestones in the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months to a year of where you need to be, and then don't make any excuses for it. Make sure that you hit those milestones. Make sure that you are stretching yourself so that way you get to that end goal by the end of the year, by next year, working for yourself full time. I wish you the best of luck, and thanks so much for connecting with me. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'd love to connect and help you more. If you have a question you'd like for me to answer, please send it to jade@studioconceal.com. That's JAYD@studioconceal.com, and I might highlight it on my podcast. I find what's often personal is most general. So if this episode helped you, please share it with a friend who may need the encouragement and inspiration. I'll catch you on the next one.